Welcome to Back to the Father, a show about the journey of life focused on our final end, which is God Himself, our loving Father. And now, here's your host, Dave Palmer.
And welcome, everybody, to this final edition, the final Back to the Father ever, unless it somewhere down the road comes back and resurrects and reemerges. But for the most part, I think this is going to be it, and I'll kind of explain the reasons for that in just a moment. But let me first of all just tell you that this is a show that has been going on for about 5 years, or how long do you think, Sissel, it's been going on?
Yeah, I think it's 5 years because we were doing a morning show, and then that ended in 2020, and we started this at the very end of 2020, possibly early 2021.
All right. You've got a better memory about these things than I do, yeah. Okay, so end of 2020. 2020 was a tumultuous year in many ways, but that's when the Back to the Father show started. It's always been very consistent. It's about the teachings of St. Thomas Aquinas and the Summa Theologia. And the reason we're ending it is because really no other reason than the fact that, I just felt that I was kind of doing too much. This is obviously one small thing among the myriad of, duties that I have. The same with Sissel. She's got tons of things on her plate. And I just was meeting with our leadership team yesterday, and I said, you know what? I think one thing that I probably could drop is Back to the Father, because it does take some time. And to do a show, it really takes a lot of time and commitment. You think about what goes into Morning Joy or the Spirit World or the Quest, and it's a lot of work, And this has always been the little show that, is social media only. It's not on the radio. And, it's been a lot of fun. And so I just want to say we're not getting canceled. It's not, something that came from outside. It was a decision that I made, and immediately I told Sissel. So I want to, first of all, thank Sissel, because really, other than me being the host, Sissel has been the consistent factor in this show. We've had some co-hosts that have come and gone. We'll talk a little bit about them in a second. But I want to thank you sincerely, Sissel, for all the help. I know it's probably been mentally agonizing at times to have to sit there and talk about Thomistic philosophy for a long time.
I feel like I've learned a lot. I think it's been a lot of fun, and it has been a very fun journey because it's a very unique show and it's gone through a lot of iterations. But
yes, it has.
We've had a lot of fun with it. But it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I want to say hi quickly to Apache Tim and Tanjiro on YouTube. They're they're saying hi and good afternoon. So good afternoon to you all.
Hey, Apache Tim. Thanks for joining us. This will be your last opportunity to be with Back to the Father. I also, sincerely want to thank the GRN because this is something that spawned from the morning show that we were doing. And, back then I remember coming up with the concept, and they were always trying to, create digital content. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. But I will say that, even though this is the little show in the GRN, you've got the big Morning Joy and the Quest and, the big Spirit World, and we sing our faith. But this show was always treated kind of the same. I mean, if you went to an event and they've got the banners, for Morning Joy, there would be a banner for Back to the Father. If you watch Morning Joy in the morning, you'll see the logos for all the shows that GRN produces, and you're going to see Back to the Father there. So it was always treated like a legit show, and for that, I'm very grateful for the investment and also the trust that they put in us. I still remember Joe McClain and I being on the phone talking about a name for this show, and I suggested a few of them first, and he's like, I don't like that. I don't like that either. I don't like that. And he said, he said the title of the show's got to mean something. It's like when they hear the title, it's got to be significant. And I'll be honest, Sissel, I don't think there could have been a better title for this show, because it so much represents what the whole Summa Theologia is about, is, our being created by God and then returning to God. In fact, I hear people on the radio and, talking about, returning back to the Father all the time. And I always think, yes, Fridays at 1:00, thanks for the promotion. So, this is your last opportunity to get in and make your comments. And
by the way, Apache Tim is our friend Timoteo. That's it was coming under a different name on my screen over here, so I was seeing something different.
I thought it might be Tim Mott at first.
That also, that would fit as well.
Yeah. Well, it's very fitting for Timoteo to be here on this last show, because if there's anybody network wide that represents the faithfulness of being present for our shows, particularly the Morning Joy show, it's Timoteo. I mean, he is like synonymous with our efforts to go digital and build a community. He is there every single morning. I always kind of, I'm kind of the voyeur. I'm not commenting a lot, but I'm there and I'm kind of reading the comments. And sometimes, like yesterday, yesterday I was on the program, but it's always Timoteo, and he typically is the one that makes the first comment. Hey, good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Adam. And so, Timoteo, thank you very much. It's very meaningful that you're with us. And so I also want to just kind of go back and talk about, Sissel said, so what was it called? The iterations? Is that the
iterations?
Yeah, the iterations of...
the eras of...
Yeah, right. Yeah, there were some eras. And do you remember the first show?
Gosh, it was so, I vaguely do. It was so interesting because it wasn't, because we were on the radio at that point. So we were on the radio and digital. So it was balancing a lot of things, and I was producing, but I was also being the guest.
I just remember we were at our other studio, and I remember being in there, and I was here, and you were there, and I just remember having the screen. We had pretty good participation that show, as I remember, and we were on the radio. Back then we were taking phone calls, and people were calling in, and I remember Matt Swaim calling in one time. And so one of the iterations, and I think it was pretty much from the beginning, was when we had our dear friend Jonathan von Weber Hansberg, and he was a hoot, and we were doing little video promos and cool stuff like that. So that was in the beginning, and Jonathan would come on, and he was at the time, I think, a high school student. Eventually he went to UD. He's probably out of UD by now. Haven't seen him in quite some time. But that was the first one, first kind of iteration, I guess you could say, with Jonathan. Then he went to school and wasn't able to do it any longer. And then, of course, William Kirkendall was another iteration. You remember him?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. William, another one of our interns who got roped into talking about Thomistic philosophy, but they all handled it very well. And he came on for a while and really enjoyed it and added his insights. There was a time in that era, I feel like, where you were doing quizzes for us at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And so
I forgot about that.
And I got a little competitive sometimes.
Yeah, just a tad.
That was great fun.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about that, where it would be a little competition about something. Was it related to the show, or was it just kind of random?
You always had some form of tie-in. Now, there were loose tie-ins from time to time, but you did try to keep it vaguely on theme. Yes. Yeah,
Jonathan. William was kind of competitive as well, wasn't he? Did we do that with Jonathan, or did that start with William?
I think we may have done a little bit with Jonathan as well.
Okay, and then there were various people that would come on the show now and then. Teresita was on one time. So Teresita Perez, and in fact, she was here a couple of days ago, and I mentioned to her that she could come on. I don't think at that time I knew this was going to be the last show. I mean, this being the last show literally happened yesterday. And Toya said, well, do you want to do one more show, or do you want to just end it? And I said, no, let me go ahead and do one more, and so we can at least say goodbye to everybody and explain to them why it's happening. But this will be the last Back to the Father. I mean, you never know. It may come back at some point. But I do think it was cool that yesterday got an email from a gentleman up in Pennsylvania who has signed up for our Seine River Cruise. He actually emailed Debbie and Adam with the Spirit World through their show email, and then he copied Back to the Father. I thought it was so cool because to be honest with you, we don't get that many emails for Back to the Father, but for him to have kind of associated me, I guess, knowing that I'm planning to be going to the Seine River Cruise. And to copy me on that was pretty cool, especially since it was the day before the last show. So I half jokingly say, today's show is going to kind of show you why this show is no longer going on, because I picked a topic that, at least on the surface of it is like, who in the world would be interested in this topic? but I want you to give it a chance, okay? Give this topic a chance. And what we're going to talk about is living a metaphysical life. Now, I mentioned this to Teresita the other day, and she's like, oh, that sounds so New-Agey. And it does kind of sound New-Agey, but I also had a conversation with my friend Dr. Ray Lopez earlier today, and he's a Aristotelian scholar, and he loves metaphysics. And he was in complete agreement with me that, we're all metaphysicians, okay? Once I explain what this is all about, it's not going to be too much of a stretch to say, hey, you know what? Metaphysics is not that big of a deal. It's just a long word, and it sounds kind of confusing, but metaphysics is just like the study of existence. It's just being, right? I mean, every one of us, if you're watching this, you exist. In fact, that's going to be my
I hope that wasn't a news flash to anybody.
That's going to actually be my first step as I go through the 10 steps of living the metaphysical life. And there you go. Cecil has the first graphic up, living a metaphysical life. And by this, what I mean is that we all, and I don't mean to be, kind of like stupid here when I say this, but it's just a fact. We all exist, right? And we are participating in existence, and we're interacting with the world. And sometimes I think we can kind of slumber our way through the world and not really reflect on the fact that we exist and what exactly does that mean. And I'll never forget, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on this show or not, Sissel, but back in my early 20s, I was on a job interview, and the interviewer, and I didn't get the job. I don't even know if I cared if I got the job. I never ended up working for this company, but a guy said something to me in a job interview that I'll never forget. And it goes to show you that sometimes you could say something to somebody and you think it's just an offhand comment, but it may be a life lesson that they take from the rest of their life. And what he said was, this is our life is not dress rehearsal. And he said, this is it. This is our life. And I remember as a young, wet behind the ears, little 22-year-old out of college, that made a profound difference in my life. And what he meant is that, this is our one shot at life. This isn't dress rehearsal. This is it. We're living the life. And I will ask you, what if you found out today that you had a week to live? Okay. If you found out, and Sissy, you can, kind of give your take on it. You find out from a doctor, God forbid, you got a week to live, and then you step outside your house or your building that you're in, and you look out. Would it be different? Would the perspective of that bird flying by or the sunset that night, would it be different? It wouldn't be any different, but would you be different? What do you think?
I think I would have to be just a little bit. I think more often than not, when a bird flies by or you see a sunset, you might make a passing comment in your head, oh, that's beautiful, or, but you're thinking, well, I'm going to see it tomorrow again, too. Mm-hmm. So you're not really thinking you don't maybe appreciate it the same way as if you're like, oh, I should really cherish these last few days on the earth that God created.
I'm only going to see 6 more of these.
Right.
I'm only going to see 6 more sunsets.
I should actually stop and take a moment to take it in.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is, and kind of like that guy said, this isn't dress rehearsal. This is it. This is our life. And, we do have a finite number of days. And so metaphysics is basically saying, let's be a little bit more aware of our existence. I know it sounds silly. But just to be a little bit more aware, make a conscious effort to pay attention to the fact that we're alive, we exist. And also, of course, and this is where it's not New-Agey, but also connect it to God as our creator, our efficient cause, our final cause, which I'll explain in the last slide. And just kind of be more observant, a spirituality of awareness, I guess you could say. So let me see. One of my favorite quotes by Saint Irenaeus is when he said, "The glory of God is the human person fully alive." The glory of God is a human person fully alive. Yeah, it's
in our intro. Yeah,
that's right. Thank you. I'd actually kind of forgotten about that. I appreciate that, and we'll have to make note of the outro because the outro has a really interesting little aspect to it as well, which I won't get into now. So, all right, the second slide just talks about Thomistic metaphysics. And one of the things that I think is the reason why St. Thomas Aquinas and his, philosophy and theology have staying power, and why he's still really relevant, to this day, 750 years after he lives, is because he came up with a very unique metaphysics, a unique way of seeing the world, of being aware of our existence, right? And that is what metaphysics is, right? And I think that, as I'll explain during the course of today, how it's different, and I hope it makes sense. And so let's go ahead and go into it. And I have here the 10 steps to a metaphysical life. And again, this isn't New-Agey. This is very Catholic, based on St. Thomas Aquinas, who I think has some Catholic bona fides.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. He's all right. And Sissel, of course, stop me if anybody comments. I don't know if we still have Apache Tim with us.
We do.
Not.
I do. I have if you wanted me to really quickly, I have a couple of comments.
Yeah, please.
Because I had asked out on the chat, like, if anyone else, because we were reflecting on Fawn Back to the Father memory. So I asked if anyone had any as well. And Tim says that he really liked the episode that we covered, the angels, which were always some of our most popular episodes by far.
Yeah.
And then he also said that he's learned a lot from watching, and he said it was sad. It's sad because we make a great team together. So, but we appreciate it, Tim.
Have you ever met Timoteo?
I've not in person. No.
Has Timoteo? Did you go to like the 25th anniversary?
He was not able to go. I remember because I asked him about that, but he was not able to go. But met him virtually.
Yeah, I know Tim, or the other Tim, Mott, mentioned in the comments the other day when I was on yesterday, talking about the GRN Academy, and Timoteo made a comment about, he would do some of the GRN Academy classes, but he says it's a little, costly for him. I don't know. I think we ought to make him just like an honorary GRN Academy student. That's just me. That's what I would do. But anyways, I'm sorry you're not able to be in any of the classes, Timoteo. All right, so let's go through this, and the show does not go over an hour. It might not even take that long. Although today, being the last show, we might as well get the most out of it. Maybe we will go a full hour. And by all means, if you are watching the show somewhere else, we've had a lot of international, viewers and participation from New Zealand and India and different countries. Can you remember any other countries, Sissel, that
I know there were some other ones that we got. We got a lot of really random, and it was really awesome just to see people popping in. A lot of Middle Eastern countries. I remember seeing quite a few Middle Eastern countries. Oh, I think one time we had Ireland or Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had some cool.
I bet you probably my in-laws have watched from Ireland before.
I'm sure.
I think maybe when my wife was over there, they may have tuned in. So, all right. So let's tell me if this makes sense. We're going to go through this 10 steps to the metaphysical life. And ultimately, this is to bring awareness to our relationship with God, our union with God, and God kind of drawing us to Him, okay? And that's the whole reason for Back to the Father, is that we're created by God, and then God pulls us back and, uses, things like grace and the theological virtues and the gifts of the Holy Spirit and all these things that help draw us back to Him, which is his soul. Certainly His will is for us to be united to Him. It doesn't happen in every case, but through His permissive will, He allows some people to not, gain eternal life. But He certainly would like to see us all in that situation. So here are the 10 steps, okay? Step number 1, as I kind of alluded to, and I've got a picture for each one of these steps, and we're going to have 10 of them. We'll go through them kind of quickly. Step number 1 is, as I mentioned a moment ago, is being aware that you exist. Okay, I probably don't need to convince you of that, but if you are watching this program right now, you exist. But I want you to see yourself as subject. Okay, so sometimes we talk about something is very subjective, and that just means it's from our perspective. Okay, my subjectivism is the way I see the world, and Sissel would have a certain subjectivism as well because she's a different subject. Okay, and then think about all the things in the world that are in your experience, and those are the objects. So you got subject and you got objects. And there is a relationship between us and all the things that we experience in the world. You know, as I look in front of me now, I see a glass jar and a plastic bottle of water. I see a microphone, a camera, a light. Okay, so I mean, I have a relationship with these things. Okay, because we're in the same room, right? And so that's the first thing. And the other cool thing is that this should make you think about the Blessed Trinity, because in the Blessed Trinity, there are relations as well. Okay, the Blessed Trinity is not just three persons, each kind of doing their own thing and ignoring each other. Is that it's a very dynamic relational relationship. Relational relationship. How about that? Within the Blessed Trinity. Okay, so, and then finally with this step number one is realize that the various faculties of the human person, like our intellect, our will, our passions, our appetite, our senses, they're all at work, okay, between us as subject and then the object of all of our experiences. Okay, so you got that, and you got that in your mind as a first step, Sissel?
I think so. I think I can move past the second step. I think I make it.
Okay,
you may lose me somewhere along the way, but at least I made it past step one. Okay.
So yeah, this is all kind of common sense stuff, but I mean, just want to bring it front of mind so that you're reflecting on it actively. All right, so that's the first one. Now the second one that we'll do is something that is probably the most unique thing of Thomistic metaphysics, is that St. Thomas Aquinas emphasized existence over essence, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Is that what he said was that existence isn't like a thing. It's not like so much a noun, although you could certainly construe it to be that way. But what he said, and this is kind of revolutionary thinking, he said that everything that exists is in act. Okay, it's in the act of existence. And so what I want you to do in this second step is consider everything that you see right now is not just like, okay, here's a phone that exists, right? And it sounds kind of passive and it's just kind of sitting there. But I want you to think of the existence as an action, okay, because it acts. And I purposely in this picture showed you a room with a bunch of inanimate things like a window and a clock and a table and a chair. I don't know, maybe there's a chair there. But all these things that you wouldn't think of being like an act because they're not like flying around or moving around the room. But I want you to make that stretch and think of things in act, because if something exists, it's in act. Okay, so that's step number 2 of 10, all right? We're 20% through. So you are subject, there's objects, there's a world out there, you're interacting with them, and all these things with step number 2 are in act, all right? So I want you to kind of imagine a very dynamic world of everything, even the things you don't think of as acting, because if they weren't acting, they would cease to exist. Okay, so and if anybody has any questions, it gives if you ask a question, it gives me a chance to take a sip of water, take a little break or something. And again, we're going out with a doozy here. Okay, people are like, wow, this is kind of deep, right? It's really not that deep. I mean, you think about it. It's just, I mean, come on, this isn't too bad, right? Okay, so, and Sissel, you can just interrupt me if there's a question. You don't have to like wait for me to say, hey, are there any questions? But because I'm very curious if anybody does, in fact, have any. All right, so everybody got it? So everything in the world, if it exists, it's an act. Okay, so it's not just if it's running around and talking and doing stuff or flying. If it exists, it's an act. And if it's not an act, then it doesn't exist, right? Okay, so we got that. All right, on to number 3. And this is where it's going to start getting really interesting, because St. Thomas Aquinas defines God as a pure act of being. Now, what that means is that God is existence. Okay, so his very essence is existence, and there's no difference between them. And I know that's like, oh my gosh, that sounds really, really confusing, but just And it is confusing. Okay, it's hard to kind of put our head around that, but because we think of like individual things existing, but remember, all these things are in the act of existence. So if you think of everything in the world as an act of existence, and then God being existence, where does your mind go with that? Okay, can you kind of picture that? Can you picture everything in an act of existence? And think also that the existence for each of these individual things is kind of like the same. You know, Sissel exists, I exist, the microphone exists, right? The existence is the same. We exist, right? And so there's not really much differentiation, okay? And but then God is existence itself. So if nothing else, with that kind of comparison, you can see that there's a relationship between God as existence and all of these existing things. Now, I want one brave person out there to come in and say, does that make sense? Okay, I have to go to Sissel every single time because Sissel's like, oh my gosh. Okay, so does it make sense? And if you say no, it doesn't make sense, it's all right, because it doesn't entirely make sense to me, and it probably didn't make sense to St. Thomas Aquinas entirely either. But if one of you brave people out there wants to give it a shot and let us know if it makes sense to you or if it doesn't make sense, because we're only 3 out of 10 into it, okay? So, let that kind of settle. And okay, so everything out there exists. It's in an act of existence. God is existence itself. So you can see that by that very explanation, there's a pretty intimate relationship between God and all the things in the world that exist. Okay, so. The problem, though, right now is that it could sound kind of pantheistic, right? If all these things are existing and God is existence, it would kind of seem like they all just kind of get sucked up into God's existence. Can you see that? If that makes sense, you can see where the pantheists go wrong, because they kind of lump everything together. But in the next step, number 4, I have a picture here of a butterfly sitting on a little flower, right? And even though everything out there exists and the existence is kind of the same, because existence is pretty standard for everybody, what differentiates us is essence. Okay, so now we have all these things existing, but the essence of these individual things is what differentiates them. Okay, so for example here, the butterfly is not a flower. The flower is not the leaf behind it. The leaf is not the cloud. The cloud is not the sky. The sky is not the dragonfly, right? So even though they all exist and they have that in common with God, each one of them has a different essence. And so what St. Thomas Aquinas says, and this is what I learned from Dr. Peter Kraft, is the essence is what limits us, okay? Because I'm a man and I'm not a flower or a bird or a squirrel. Even though I have existence in common with all those things, what kind of contracts me and makes me more limited is my essence. But then if you think about God's essence and existence are the same thing, his essence doesn't limit him because he is existence. He's not contracted by being a particular thing. Even an angel is a particular angel, right? All right. I'm kind of hoping there would be a comment because I need to take a sip of water and take a break.
I will say, Tim is saying that it does make sense, that God is reality. He also is glad that we are not figments of our imagination. So those are some of the comments that we've gotten.
We're not figments of our imagination.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I think Timoteo's a bit of a philosopher. He's starting to get this. So all right. So that's 4, and maybe this is kind of making sense a little bit. So now this is where in step number 5. We talk about, personhood, all right? And we talked about this last week a little bit about the kind of the dignity of the human person and what makes us unique. And so I think the next one's going to be a picture of like a horse. That's going to pop up here in just a second. And the lesson here is that what's unique about persons, meaning the three persons of the Godhead, the angels, and the human being, is that we are able to universalize and basically come to know all things. Okay, so in this case, we look at that creature in front of us, the picture there in the center left, and we're able to look at that with our senses and then universalize and consider all the horses we've ever seen kind of as like one thing, right? So we have the minds that can, what Thomas would say, abstract, the universals out of things. And this is a very unique thing that only persons can do. Okay, dogs and cats and butterflies and earthworms can't do this. And so this is, speaks of the dignity of the human person in being able to do this, to be able to universalize, and also to come to know all things. The person has an infinite desire to know. Okay, think about that. Aren't you always trying to learn something? Aren't you always trying to get more information? Aren't you constantly, filling your mind with new facts and information? If we lived even longer, we could even know more, but we have a very limited time that we can kind of grow our intellect. All right, you probably wouldn't be tuned into this show if you weren't interested in learning, okay? Because there's a little bit of learning going on here. So that's what's cool about being a person, is that all these essences that I talked about that contract existence, we are able to know. And Aquinas would say that when we come to know something, it becomes a part of us. Okay, so if I said, something like something that's not up there on the screen, like chipmunk or beaver or whatever, ocean, you have that in your mind, right? Why? Because you've experienced these things, and so they're in you. And so we are basically walking around with all of these things in us. We possess them. Even if they're not right in front of us at the moment, we possess them because we are persons. And that we're able to conjure up these kind of like concepts or thoughts or imaginations of pretty much everything we've ever experienced. Okay, and so that's pretty cool. All right, so that's that. And then, okay, so we're able to have all these universals of all these things in our mind, as I just explained. So number 6 is going to be a big, you're going to see the word God. And the lesson here with number 6 is that all of these universals and all these forms that I'm talking about, all these things that are in our mind, the horseness and, dogness and butterflyness and all that kind of stuff, they all pre-exist in the mind of God. Okay, so long before they ever came into our mind as persons, they were in the mind of God. So you imagine God from all eternity had knowledge of every single thing that could possibly exist, even before it ever actually came into existence. And so that's why with God, as St. Thomas Aquinas says, the knowledge of things is its creation. Okay, so when all God had to do is combine his knowledge and his will, and those things were created, right? So, all right. So I'm guessing, since Sissel hasn't interrupted, there aren't any more comments right now.
I'm about to interrupt, though, because I do have one comment. Tim says, speaking of dignity, the fact that God loves us as though we were his only creation. I think it's more of amusing that it's, that the fact that God loves us as though we were his only creation.
Yeah. And he loves us more than he loves all the other things as well, because he gives us, unlike all the other creatures except for the angels, the ability to unite with him and to know him. I don't think anybody would say that, a bunny rabbit knows God. They may be a reflection of God or a trace of God, but they don't know God, like we do, or at least have the ability to know God. All right, so now moving on to number 7. And if this interests you, you might want to go back and kind of watch this again. It's I know it's kind of throwing a lot at you, But this is all, the 10 steps to living the metaphysical life. And it's very Catholic. It's not New-Agey. This is all about us really being created by God and then coming to know him through the created world and through his grace. And, grace is just a participation in the life of God. So, all right. So all these forms and all these things pre-exist in the mind of God. And so number 7, I think we're at right now, is that what God can do is that he has, something in his mind and he can actualize it. So he takes a form. So just give me a random creature. Give me
a chipmunk.
Okay.
I don't know why that's the first thing came to my mind.
Did I mention chipmunk earlier? Or?
No, I think it just because we're getting into the holiday season, I was thinking about chipmunks.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Because the
little, Chip and Dale. I don't know, the little. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Don't know why my brain went that
that's
direction.
A good one. So imagine God has chipmunkness in his mind, right? And then he decides he's going to actualize a chipmunk. Okay. So he takes the form in his mind, combines it with matter, and you have a chipmunk, an actual little chipmunk running around in the world. And then imagine he says, okay, that little chipmunk is so cute and Cecil Anderson likes it so much that I'm going to make 10 million of them and I'm going to spread them all out over the world. Okay. So he creates these things into the world, actualizes them. And so now, rather than it just being in the mind of God, it's an actual physical chipmunk, and we'll give the word substance to it. Okay, so God creates the individual thing, form and matter, and that is a substance. Okay, so now the substance has existence, because before it was just kind of in the mind of God. It didn't exist as an actual thing, but now it exists, and it's an act, as we learned in the second step. And it's something that we can come to know because we come to know things through our senses, right? All right. Step number 8 is I forget what picture I think. This is the pig. Oh, it's our little pig. Okay, so God creates an actual pig, and this is where it's a substance of a pig, an individual little piggy, and what I found very effective when I teach high school kids this is I'll say, let's give the pig a name. Okay. And of course the kids love giving the pig a name. So let's name the pig.
Heck yes.
Okay. Do you want to name it, Cecil?
Sure. This isn't something I feel a lot of pressure in my life.
What's the little pig from Charlotte's Web? Was that Weber?
Wilbur.
Wilbur.
I think it's Wilbur. It's something very close to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And my sister loves pigs, so our kitchen actually has a collection of pig items, like pig statues. She loves little pigs. And her favorite movie was Babe and Charlotte's Web, growing up. So I'm going to name him Babe.
Charlotte's Web is so sad.
It is a very sad little book.
Yeah.
And movie and all of the above. But I'm going to say Babe.
I actually saw it on my bookshelf just the other day at home, and I read, my son's stories every night, and I thought it's a great story, but would this traumatize him, because it is sad at the end. But then not to give it away, I'm sure most of y'all have seen it, but Charlotte the spider dies, but then doesn't a whole bunch of babies?
Yes, she does.
Yeah, there's a bunch
has
of
babies, so she kind of lives on.
Yeah, lives on.
Yeah, but it is Wilbur. But I'm gonna name Babe.
Okay, Babe. All right. So here's little Babe, and Babe is a substance. Okay, and the substance is matter in form, an individual little pig named Babe, right? But then Babe has what we call accidents, okay? And this is where it's going to kind of get, maybe help you understand the Eucharist a little bit, because in the substantial change in the Eucharist, the accidents remain. So the accidents of Babe here would be the size, the color, the weight, the height, these kind of the smell, the things that are not essential to Babe, because Babe would still be a pig if it was 2 pounds fat, heavier, or 2 pounds less. So it's not essential to its nature. So you have all these little accidents that are accidental, but the substance of it is kind of what it is, right? Babe is a pig, and if you take away any of those accidental things, you're going to still have good old babe with you. Okay, so coming down to our last two is, let's see, what do I want to get at here? Okay, is that, okay, so we are able to, what Thomas calls, abstract a phantasm. I love that term. It sounds so weird, right? But and the reason I put this picture up here is that our interaction with the world and our being persons who actually can come to know things substantially and have them in our mind and make them a part of us is one of the ways that we unite with God. Okay, so God puts all these things into the world, all these things that we come to know, and as we interact with all these things that are in act, remember, and they have that in common with God as existence, so we come to know all these things, they become a part of us, and with every individual thing that we encounter and everything that we see, it's telling us something about God. Okay, so Sissel's sister loves pigs. Well, she loves the pig because there's something good about the pig. There's something she recognizes as the pig. God is goodness.
And not just the bacon.
I know. Pigs, pigs are like so cute, but they also are so tasty.
They are.
My goodness, right? And so the final picture here is, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, it's going to show you an archer shooting an arrow to a target. And this is an image that St. Thomas Aquinas uses quite often, and I think it's fitting for us to have this as the last official image that we have on Back to the Father on this final show, is that what this means is that God is, it's called teleology, where God is basically guiding all things to their end. And it's more obvious to see this in like the created world where like not things that lack intelligence, like ants, building mounds, or bees building their little combs, or hives, I guess you could say, or a duck flying south, and all these things that are just kind of happening in the world, and they're all happening for a good purpose and a good end. And so if you take a step back and you see the entire world as making sense and being ordered and being filled with all these amazing creatures that God has created, that we can come to know through their goodness, because anything that exists is good, right? So anything that we encounter is going to have us, a goodness about it. God is goodness, and so we are having an encounter with God. So to kind of wrap all this up as best as I can, the entire world is good, existence is good, everything that exists is in act, and they have their own essences. We can come to know them. We're drawn to things. We want to know things. We have an infinite desire for the good, an infinite desire for the true with our intellect, and all of this life and all of existence is basically an effort to return to God. Right? It's God luring us back to Himself through. It's almost like putting breadcrumbs out for a bird or an animal, and it's going to be moving towards it. You ever done that, like with ducks? You see, I was at a park last weekend, and we had bread. And the ducks, these ducks, they trust us. For some reason, but they'll come
you
right.
Have food.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it.
I too trust lots of people if they have food.
I heard a comedian recently say, he says, I feel like ducks love me according to whether I have bread or not.
Basically.
So yeah, you're pretty right about that. So that is a great way to wrap up Back to the Father. And because it all came full circle, and all these different shows that we've done has basically been to try to explain what I just explained, is that our whole purpose, our whole goal in life is to get back to the Father. And the Father, like the father of the prodigal son, is like waiting for us, just with open arms, whether we're a sinner or a saint or somewhere in between, and desiring for us to come running back, despite what we've done. And he's made it pretty easy for us if we'll pay attention to our experience of the created world, right? So that's it. And we'll just, if there's any other little comments or questions before we wrap up, anything else, Sissel?
Yeah, we had one comment from SLB 3900. I love when we have the names that are from.
What does that mean?
It's just I have no idea. It's their username. I have no idea. They asked for where's the evidence for God, for a God. So I figure what better way, Dave, to close out Back to the Father than having a little conversation about that.
Well, that's good. I'd be curious to know and just, you don't have to answer, but I'm curious, are you a believer or are you doubting? Are you an agnostic? If you want to tell us that, you don't have to. But the evidence for God is very much tied into what we've been talking about, is that Aquinas in the second question of the Summa has a famous, what he calls the five proofs, the five ways for proving that God in fact does exist. And he does it, through what's called the unmoved mover, where, there's motion in the world and things are moving and they can't put themselves into motion. So you have to kind of go back, and you can't have infinite regress. And what Thomas concludes is that at some point there's going to have to be an unmoved mover at the beginning of this chain, because you can't just keep going back and back. And the second one is uncaused cause, which is basically the same thing. You just substitute movement for cause. And then there's a argument by contingency, which means the third argument means that we see in the world all these things that exist, but are only contingent and not necessary. So if you see a bird, or you see, this microphone, or I see Sissel, or I see myself, I exist, but I don't exist out of necessity. There was a time when I didn't exist, and if I was taken out of existence, I'm pretty positive the world would keep going on. And so what Aquinas concludes is that if everything in the world is only contingent and not necessary, there would, by definition, be a time when nothing would have existed. Because if it's only contingent, not necessary, then nothing is absolutely necessary. Nothing's the cause of itself. So by that, he says, well, then there has to be something necessary, something that got everything going in the first place. And I think if you follow the logic of that, it does make sense. Fourth argument is the degrees of perfection, where we notice that there are degrees of perfection. Things are faster, slower, more intelligent, more beautiful. And he's saying, well, if we naturally can see all these degrees of perfection in the created world, it seems like there would have to be something that it kind of encapsulates all of them and has the all perfections. That one, I kind of understand. I don't know if that's the best one, but I think at least we have to acknowledge that there are degrees of perfection, and we'd have to wonder why that would be the case. Why would things not all be the same? Why are there degrees, and is it not leading up to some ultimate, highest perfection? And then finally, my personal favorite is called The Governance of the World, and has very much to do with teleology, that last picture I showed you, where there are all the processes in the world that are being carried out by things that don't have intelligence, like, salmon swimming upstream, and, the photosynthesis process, like I talk about quite often, or composting, or the water cycle, the circulation of the planets around the sun. And everything is very precise, and everything's very exact. Everything's very perfect, and it works very nicely. But these are non-intelligent creatures that are carrying it out. And so it only makes sense that they're not running the show. And if they're not, who is? And why are they all kind of working to, independently, but with a big picture that kind of is working pretty nicely all together? So Thomas would conclude that there has to be some intelligence. There has to be some governor, some governance that's kind of running this entire show. And it has to be one, because you're not going to be able to run a world like this by committee, right? So if you're still with us, did that make sense? I gave you a mouthful, I know, but I know some people, was it a hit and run, or is that person still here?
I have no idea. We'll find out. But it's out here should he ever stumble upon this video again. All the Back to the Father videos will remain. Yeah. I've admitted before, I've done hit and run questions before. Do you ever do this, Sissel? You just
you go on YouTube and you see just some random person. The other lady I saw this lady, and she was talking in front of a screen. It kind of looked like this. It wasn't even as fancy as this. It looked like she was in her house, and she had two people watching. Okay. And she was kind of preaching, about Christ. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go into the room. I'm just going to see what she's talking about. Right. And I listened for a couple of minutes. I didn't leave any comments or anything like that, but I could see myself, saying, hey, what are you talking about? And then, I get called down to dinner or something. So she's answering my question, which I never hear the answer to. All right. So that is going to do it. We are at 10 minutes till the final 10 minutes of Back to the Father Ever. And Sissel, any final comments? If I may put you on the spot.
Sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, even without my question, is there anything that you just kind of want to say to our viewers and our listeners right now?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. And I think this is something that was very much needed on the internet. There's a lot of things. You mentioned there's lots of live videos, lots of things that people can stumble on. Some are good and some are bad. Some are going to take you towards God and some are going to take you away from him. But I truly hope that this program has helped a few people, even if it is a drive-by, you just pop in and pop out and you catch a little something. Who knows how God will use that. So I do think that it's been a lot of fun just to see the random people popping in and out. Someone like Timoteo has been with us a lot of the time, and other people were here for a long time, watching every week, and then a lot of people come and go. So I don't know, I would say if you appreciated this program, if you stopped in and stopped out, whatever you have done, keep searching and keep pursuing God.
Yeah, and the thing about these kind of shows is, they are forever. As long as the world goes on, and as long as
the internet does not switch off.
Yeah, I know. That's as long as the internet's around, this is always going to be there. And I don't want to face God. I think of these people that put out these really bad songs or nasty stuff or bad videos or black masses or something just evil. That doesn't go away, and so I think we just have to, especially if we're going to do something like this, make it something that gives glory to God. And hopefully this is something that we have done. And if there's anything that we have ever said that has been untrue or unkind on this show, I ask for forgiveness, and I ask for God's forgiveness, but hopefully that has not been the case.
Yep.
All right, so if there are no other comments, we are going to, is there another comment?
There's one more comment I just wanted to read, sorry.
Okay.
Timoteo just said he thanks us both for the great program, and he's going to miss not seeing it.
Oh, okay. Well, Timoteo.
Don't forget the hats.
And Timoteo, if you are, Did you just think about that?
I just thought about that.
That was an iteration.
That was another era of Back to the Father. Very early on, I wore a hat one day on the show, and Dave says, that's interesting. Are you a hat person now? And I think I just had a really bad hair day, and I was covering it with a hat.
Do you remember what the first hat was?
Gosh, it probably was just like a very simple straw sun hat sort of thing. And I said, well, I have a lot of hats, so I think I should just become a hat person.
Yeah.
And then we kind of almost was like a dare. How many hats could I wear? How many different types of hats? And people gave me hats for a while.
Did Jonathan wear a hat too?
Jonathan, he sometimes wore something, but I think I wore at least 40 different hats.
But it was mostly you, right?
It was mostly me. And then I think our friend Bill Kula came up with the "Come for the hat, stay for the summa." The hat draws you in. Jesus gets you to stay.
That's right. Whatever draws you in. I had totally forgotten about that, and I bet you there's going to be something else that we forgot about.
And our intern Sam was also on the show for a while. We've had a lot of different interns.
Sam. How many times? He didn't come as often as others.
I was flipping through our old shows, and I saw him at least 10, 15 times. A lot.
Okay, yeah. Gosh, there are a lot of things to remember. Now, are there any other kind of one-hit wonders like Teresita, who just came on one time? Did we have any of those?
My former co-host for a local program we have here, Zach Barton, came on one time with you. I think you might have had Rowena one time. I think we had a lot of random
I remember one of my students came on that one time. I think he was with Jonathan.
That's right.
And I forget his name, but he was a one-hit wonder. Came on one time. So, all right. Well, lots of good memories. And again, thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for all your support of Back to the Father. This will be the last show of Back to the Father. And so, We appreciate all the support, and we will pray for you, and please pray for us. God bless you, and watch the dog in this outro, okay? Watch the dog. This is kind of cool, okay? God bless y'all. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for Back to the Father. And don't forget, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. If you have comments about the show, email Dave Palmer at grnonline.com.